Hey guys, Blindlight here. Had a bit of feedback on some of my runs, and someone mentioned that they noticed that a lot of these runs don't have on-running commentary when they do them. So I was like, hey, yeah, I'll give it a go, and we can get some gameplay tips and stuff in there as well. So let's do it. As you've seen from the thumbnail, this is a solo, flawless prophecy dungeon without any exotics or pinnacles, so just to show you that I'm not cheating, we've got some stuff here. I will do a full rundown of all my loadout at the very end, show you all my mods and the builds that I'm using, but for now I will be using this bottom tree Night Stalker with the melee dodge just so I can crutch that invis. It still works just fine even without any kind of exotics to support it. You can't go invis for 100% of the time, but you can still use it for significant survivability options. If you're not familiar with Prophecy itself as a dungeon, I'm going to talk you through some of the mechanics as we go through, so you're going to be able to follow along what I'm doing as we go through it. On the edges of my screen here, you can see that down the bottom there's this dark, smoky stuff, and then if I walk over to the left here into a light area, it switches to light, smoky stuff, and then back again to dark, smoky stuff, and that's indicating what kind of motes I'm going to drop. So if I kill this knight, I'm standing in dark, smoky stuff at the moment, and it drops some dark motes. And then same again, if I grab two more, once I've grabbed 5 of those motes, it will switch to a big one. And I can use this big one now to go over to these pools that you can see here, and I can blast the corresponding colour or tone to be able to get rid of it. And that's pretty much the core mechanics of this raid dungeon. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to basically be collecting motes to be able to get rid of those pools for various things during this encounter and throughout the dungeon. I'm now standing in the white area, so if I kill this dude, he'll spawn some white motes. I'm going to just let him sit there very low on health in a second, because trying to collect white motes in this first area can be a little awkward. So if I get him really low, I can kill this one on this side over here, and then just polish up the last one, because I'm having to look down this lane. I'm not using an Anarchy or a Witherhoard or anything. I could drop a nade on him if I wanted to, but it just makes things a little bit more forgiving to get him low. I'm going to leave that one there as well, so you can see how long those motes last on the floor. It's quite forgiving how much time you have. So look, you can see it's only just disappeared from when I killed that guy. Got 5 light motes, so that's giving me one of these light big ones, and then I can use it to burst from here, and that opens the door to the next area. Now, the next area is exactly the same. In fact, it's more or less identical to this, but the areas are switched over. So it's actually really good for loads of light spaces, but there's not very many dark spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in this area over here, and I'm going to get some dark motes from this area, and then just run through. Because it's easier to do that than it is to just go and get the dark motes in that next area. Really? Yo! So let's collect these up. A little bit of a movement tip here. If you jump in the air and press RB, you'll go forward. This is not much quicker than just running. It is quicker, it's absolutely quicker, but I feel like the main benefit of this is that the enemies struggle to keep up with you, so you can dodge enemy incoming fire, and that's what I like most about it. It is quicker, of course, but I far prefer the survivability of being able to do that than I do the actual speed in general. Get out of here! Cool, there we go. Very nice. Grab those. And that's these first 2 corridors done. For the first boss, basically we're going to have 4 of those pools, and we're going to kill the knights to grab the motes, get the motes to be big ones, and then when they're big ones we dump on the pools and we get rid of those pools, and he will lose his immunity shield, at which point we can start doing DPS. It's a small platform, and there's going to be some other ads and stuff that spawn. I'll talk through their behaviours as we do it, but for now that's more or less the core of this encounter. Just getting rid of these pools here, and then going for DPS on the boss. I will be using a sword and a shotgun and that multi-tether again. If you're a Warlock or a Titan, you could use Rat King for the invis, or you could use a Bubble as a Titan, or, you know, Syntheseps and just heal your way up, and go nuts with the melee and the melee damage. If you're a Warlock, Devour's always a good move. You know, there are always options. One thing, one exotic that I feel every class could absolutely use, if you're willing to you know, use exotics and pinnacles in your run, definitely consider Risk Runner. It might not be insane top tier DPS, but the survivability that Risk Runner offers whenever you're fighting Fallen, or Elixni if that's what you want to call them, and taken specifically as an enemy set, there's so much arc damage that you get being able to fight those dudes. Like, I would strongly recommend anyone consider using a Risk Runner, because all of this is arc incoming damage for the most part. All of these Scions are doing arc damage, loads of the other enemies that we'll encounter will be doing arc damage, so you can just sit there and take much more arc damage by comparison to not having Risk Runner on, because it will absorb it up for you, and then it will chain all the damage back. So clearing out Scions is so quick and easy, and you can use something like a sword if you want to. You know, if you're surviving 3-4 rounds of DPS, who cares? Who cares if you're having to go 3-4 rounds of damage on the boss? If you're surviving it, and you know, if you're using like the top tier DPS weapon of that season, but you're struggling to get to one DPS phase because your survivability is low, well, you know, what would you rather have? You're definitely going to know you're getting the encounter done, so it's just something to consider. Right, so let's talk about enemies spawning in, shall we? The Knights will always spawn in on a rotation, so basically whenever I kill all 3 of the Knights, 3 more will spawn in. When we get to DPS phase, those Knights will despawn, but the Scions will spawn in every time. Did I drop my mouse? Oh, I must have run out of time with the light mouse. Hold that there. When I do this next pull, right, you'll notice I've got no Scions on the field, but as soon as I get rid of one of these wells, it will spawn more Scions in. Cue the Scions. So the Scions are tied to the pools, and they do not despawn for DPS phase. So if you decide to start up a DPS phase and you've got Scions on the field, they will still be there. And it's not that they do huge amounts of damage, it's not that they're especially difficult or that they do huge, you know, will make a big difference, but they just are another thing to consider, and they will just be obnoxiously there. And it's kind of like, if you can kill them and tidy them up before you get to your DPS phase, why wouldn't you? Get out of it. Get out of it. Get on out of here, boy! Ain't nobody got time for that. Like that. Like that as well. And you. And you. Oh, no. Yes. No. Ah, what a whiff. Is that all of them? You notice how as well I'm always standing pretty reasonably close to cover whenever I'm engaging the enemies. I always want to be near like an angle, be near a piece of scenery, so that if I get a whole bunch of flames or fire come down into a spot, I can just quickly use the line of sight to get safe. Like, I see so many players talk about that in PvP, but no one really seems to talk about it in PvE, and it absolutely works just as effectively in PvE as it does PvP. And when it comes to encounters where you're kind of doing, you know, solo flawless runs, yada yada yada, it's going to scream volumes for your survivability, so get into a good habit of doing it in PvE as well. Oh man. Thank you. Decided to kill himself rather than face me. He's jumping off. I thought that shit only happened in trials, yo! I'll take it. I'll take it. It's free wins. Nope. Yep. pretty close. I am using Shelter by the Void because it's just so forgiving for survivability. Your damage, basically it's a charge with light mod. I will again show you that at the end. So whenever I'm charged with light, I will be able to basically have huge damage reduction when I get to when I drop my shields. You might notice that the bar at the top is split up into two sections, right? So I'm normally white, and then when I get really low on health, it goes to red. When it's white, that's my shields. When it's red, it's my actual physical health. So that one health bar does connotate, you know, whether I stay alive or not, but it's split up into two segments, right? And so when I get Sheltered by the Void, whenever I dip into that kind of red health bar, when I'm getting basically one shot, the Charge with Light mod known as Protective Light will basically allow me to take huge damage reduction. Like I will not take anywhere near as much damage when it goes on, which is just immeasurably useful for stuff like this. I'm invisible, but you just blast me in the face, dude. You carry on. I don't mind. I'm British, these teeth are already pretty buggered up. Right, let's tidy this boy up. Yay, yay, nay, yay, nay, yay, nay, no, yay. Can I have an angle, please? Can I get an angle? Wow, this man is like, get down, Mr. President! Thank you. So one caveat, by the way, to the notes earlier, this will not spawn in Scions. That last one, you're good for. All the others will. Oh my. Oh my. But that last pool will not spawn in Scions for you. Thank you. This guy is very obnoxious when it comes to doing DPS on him with that shield. So you kind of want to try and aim to attack him from his left side. That was crack-a-lacking. He also wanted to spin whirly-whirly. Yeah, I'm not going off today, man. Not today, friend! I want to get about half his DPS done in this one. Go on. Go on there! Yeah! It's not the most damage I've done in DPS phase, but that's more than enough. Half, that's fine. And there's some ammo. Juicy, juicy, baby. Oh, there's some more. Man, we're swimming in it. For the first set of pools that spawn in, it seems to generally be a rule of thumb that you'll always get 2 light and 2 dark. On your second set, look, I've now got 3 light and 1 dark. So just check what you've got on the field after you've done some DPS. Oh, really? So if you didn't know, Bottom Tree Stalker, by the way, when you do damage with your grenade, you get your melee back. So dodging next to an enemy isn't the only way for you to get your invis back. You can totally dump a nade on an enemy and it will replenish your melee energy. Yoop! Don't dodge when you're holding one of these motes, by the way. If you dodge, you can use your nade, but you can't dodge. If you dodge, you will you'll lose the mote you're holding. More Scions. I don't really want to kill you there with motes, but I do want to get rid of all those Scions. Ooh, hello. Oh, I say. You went right off then. Thanks, friend. Also, if you run over a different type of mote that you're holding, so say I had dark motes and I run over some light motes, I would forego my black motes, my dark motes, and I would instantly switch to having the only amount of light motes that I have. So if I've got 1 dark mote and I run over 1 light mote, it would just give me 1 light mote. If I had 3 dark motes and ran over 1 light mote, I would just have 1 light mote. So be careful what you're running over. In this scenario, you know, I only wanted light motes, so I'm just being very careful of what I'm picking up when. Can you? Light modes? Yay, nay? Nah, that's close. Yeah, I want to get rid of all these sounds. Work the room, baby, work the room. Cool, this is looking pretty decent. I think we're ready. Don't you be booping away my motes. Those are my motes, boy. Go on there. I reckon that one in the middle is going to be the most awkward. So let's do him first. What? That was a fucking gnat's nipple from me going off the side. Totally could have just sword swiped back on, but amusing nonetheless. Oh, oh, oh! Let's tidy up all your boys. Are you aping on me? These knights have a really nasty habit of just deciding to play hyper aggressive, and they will run across the map and just use their boomer shot constantly over and over and over. Something to be aware of, just always expect it to happen. So if you start taking damage, like expect the boomer to just turn around and be like that particular noise. That's how I imagine them in Crucible, by the way. Like any shotgun apes in Crucible go. And yes, I am a fusion rifle main. Just because they're an excellent counter to shotgunners. Occasionally I'll use a sniper. Let's go. Oh, yes, yeah. Alright. Oh, that's a whiff. Let's tidy you up, big fella. Nice, don't you smack me into a wall. Don't you be smacking me into a no wall. Right, I know you're super low, but I'm super low and I'm not looking to push it. I can always come back and do more DPS later. Nope. 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 I'm gonna take that and let's tidy you up. No. Done. Patience is a virtue, and it pays off. You know, I could have pushed in there, and maybe I'd have had a third DPS phase, but my survivability is pretty decent. You know, if I was using something like Risk Runner, I want to be guaranteeing that I'm clearing the encounter and pushing damage and various other things. You know, I can always back off and come back. I can always do another round of DPS. So, it's all good. So guys, let's talk loadout real quick. We'll start off with the stats, and we'll start off with the subclass. I was using the Night Stalker, bottom tree, and we had the Gambler's Dodge in order to be able to get our melee back. Our melee in this case with the smoke in order to be able to go invis, and then it's particularly synergized well with Combat Provision, which means that whenever we damage enemies with our grenade, we're going to be able to get our melee ability energy back. So we have two ways in order to be able to get our invis back, which is really nice. And then we obviously had the Mobius Quiver, which is the multiple shadow shots in order to be able to do loads of damage. So that's really nice as well for our DPS. In terms of stats, we were running 100 mobility, we had at least 80 recovery, which is real good, and we also had 80 intellect. So we've got that nice ability to be able to get our dodge back and to be able to get our melee back real quick, but we also had recovery in order to be able to keep our survivability up, and then we had some intellect, which is particularly good for being able to take care of that first boss and make sure that we've always got our super up when we want it. In terms of armor, for our headpiece, some notable mods that we're basically running. There's some very general stuff like loaders and reserves and different things. I didn't change out too much of this stuff during the run, but some notable things that we do want to pay attention to: taking charge. Basically, most of my weapons are completely masterworked, so whenever I use them and whenever I make multiple kills with them, they'll be making orbs of power. Whenever I walk over those orbs of power, they're going to be giving me a buff called Charge with Light. Because I've got this mod on taking charge, I can then use that Charge with Light buff in a couple of different ways. One of the ways I was mainly concentrating on here was Protective Light. So we got Charge with Light, and then this is one of the ways we can spend it. Basically, whenever we get down to that last segment of health and we're taking huge amounts of damage, Protective Light is going to give us a huge armor resistance boost and really make our lives much more comfortable, which is a great way of making sure that your survivability goes way up. So strongly recommend. The other way that we can use our Charge with Light is for that first encounter. We were using it with Lucent Blade, which basically will increase our sword damage. So we're getting Charge with Light by creating orbs. We're then using those orbs to walk over them to get Charge with Light. Then we're either staying alive using Protective Light, or we're attacking with Lucent Blade with our sword to do extra damage. For the first encounter, talking about weapons, we had Criminal's Dagger. Could be using anything, just like the 120s in order to be able to clear through ads. We were using a 7th Seraph shotgun in order to be able to quickly do lots of burst damage to some of those knights. Lightweight frame means that we're moving around that a little bit quicker, which is nice too. We were using a Falling Guillotine for a nice amount of burst damage there, got a boss spec mod on it. Heard someone once say that they preferred having Taken spec because it does more DPS. We will do some damage comparisons, and I'll do a link to that video later on this week, so we will do a damage comparison of Taken spec and boss spec mod to see which one is stronger. My previous testing from before Beyond Light showed that actually boss spec mod fared better, but we'll test that. Most importantly, when it comes to our Falling Guillotine, is a Whirlwind Blade. Okay, what we're going to be doing with that is, it means rapid sword strikes, means we're increasing our DPS. So what we're going to do a couple of light attacks, and then we're going to follow up with a big strong heavy attack, because that's going to give us huge burst damage. Generally on that first boss, I'll try and do 2 or 3 light attacks. You can rank up more, but because he's got that large shield in front of him, he'll often either knock you away, or he'll end up just being a douche and turning so much that you can't end up landing attacks on him. So as a rule of thumb, I stick with generally 2 or 3 light attacks.